It's the Bionicle Inspiration Series where we spotlight MOCs from across the community to give you some inspiration. Recently some people said, hey, why don't you do an episode all about great beings? And so I said, you know what? I will, but I'll also make it about gods, because there's not as many great beings MOCs as you'd think there would be. But it's all about great beings and gods today, so let's dive in and get inspired to build some gods ourselves. The first MOC today is by MOCS, and this is Neptune God of the Sea. So the first thing that grabbed me about this, ironically, wasn't the MOC itself, it was the stand. And what I like about it is it's wonderfully, unimposing and just doesn't, stand out at all. And I think that's perfect, because that's kind of what you want for a stand, right? It needs to be, essentially invisible. You don't want to see it, because otherwise it's distracting and it takes away from the MOC itself, or worse, it can look like it's a part of the MOC and then you just get confused. So the fact here that it is noticeably different is good, but I don't know, there's something about it that just doesn't feel distracting at all. Maybe it's the fact that the tentacles go over the top of it, it's hard to say, but yeah, you just kind of don't notice it. But when you do take a look at it, there's a lot to see. It's a nice old looking stone pillar, and underneath is this sea of white lift arms here, which to me kind of reminds me of clouds, so it still kind of fits in with that godlike look, but it can also just be a kind of white thing at the bottom. So I don't know, hopefully I'm explaining this well, but just seeing a bunch of nothing down there, but when you do take a look at it, there's still something nice to look at. I think that's very appropriate here. There's good points of interest, but it's dull enough that it doesn't distract. It's great to see a lot of tentacle spam all throughout this MOC, whether that's on the legs or I guess just the lower part of the MOC, or on the kind of face beard area here. And I think all these tentacles flow really well into the very CCBS heavy torso too. This MOC is a really nice blend of both system and CCBS pieces, and I think the choice to really focus the system on these soulful eyes and the nicely crafted face, and that's primarily using system pieces, but then the bulk of the muscles on the body or the arms or areas of the arms, you use your Bionicle or your construction style pieces. And I think it's smart to look at it from that perspective. Construction pieces work for characters, whereas system pieces work best when you want to hone in on smaller details. So when you're next building a MOC, what do you think is going to best serve the design that you have in mind? Are you going for a more intricate face? Or are you really trying to convey a specific look with the face design? Maybe you need your system. Or are you just going for a pretty bare bone face design? Probably just a typical Bionicle mask will work. Are you going for a highly intricate torso? Maybe you need system pieces there. Or are you looking for a more muscle chiseled look, or just trying to really perfectly match human proportions? CCBS is definitely your bet there. So yeah, I love the very clear, deliberate choice in using those specific style of pieces and the fantastic result that it achieves. It's just cool to see. So yeah, what a brilliant and I guess just dynamic character build that Alex has done here. And the choice to have the tentacles and the hair moving in the same direction, so it kind of looks like they're swimming. That's a nice choice as well. So really nice stuff here. The next MOC now is by Manuel B, and this is Agonist the Recluse. So Agonist is, if I'm pronouncing it right, is an actual great being from the Bionicle storyline, and on the Bionicle wiki there isn't actually any image for the character. I believe the only thing it said is that they have orange eyes. And of course that's been conveyed here, so nicely done. But I don't know, I know I've said this before, but I love seeing people take a character that exists in the Bionicle lore that doesn't have any visual representation for them, and then building a look for it that does give it some visual representation. It's just a fun challenge, and if you are a bit of a someone who's really into the lore of Bionicle, and it's a fantastic story and everything, there's a bunch of different characters out there that haven't been given a visual look. So that's the spirit of Lego. Go build it and give it some life and give it some love. So lovely to see that here. Now, with Neptune before, we had a very grand godlike presence to that build. It was big, it was imposing, it just looked very godlike. But this build's a lot smaller and a lot kind of more simple, and I guess it's just different to what we saw before. It's quite a stark contrast, and I actually really like that. This reminds me of some of the really early imagery that came on some of the promotional stuff for the Toa Mata, where we would see them as all grey, and when they didn't have their masks on, and obviously when they got powered up they changed color and blah 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 blah. But it reminds me of these specific images, and I think this MOC captures that element. I don't know if it's deliberate, but it at least reminds me of that. And to me, it makes it look really ancient, like both physically, just because they look like an older, like wrinkled robot, but these wrinkles are more sort of, mechanical wires and stuff. But there's a sense of age to it, right? But they're also sort of old from a meta sense as well, because, like I said, this looks like some of the oldest, earliest Bionicle artwork. Whether or not that's deliberate, it still does. So yeah, I think the choice to not go grand, but instead build a character that's really simple and filled with that greeble detail to make it look a bit more aged and old. I love that. I think it's a very different way of approaching a god, but it still makes sense. Gods would be old. They were probably around at the creation of the universe sort of thing, right? So a very different but appropriate take on the character. I really like that. I love the choice of this scarf or kind of shawl thing that they've got going on here. It feels like there's someone who's like traveled through the desert and has been through all sorts of hardship. And again, there's something about that makes it feel like aged, or that they've traveled or been through a lot sort of thing, which again makes sense for a god. So I like that choice there. I also enjoy the staff too. The fact that it is a very different color and almost the style of it feels a lot more smooth and modern, I suppose. I like that. It makes the weapon feel kind of more powerful as a result. I think the fact that it contrasts so much with the person holding it, you get the sense that it's this legendary object that's been passed down for generations, and they have the privilege of holding it because it is this wondrous object. So I like that idea of having the weapon visually look very different from color and aesthetics and part choices and stuff, so that it has more of a presence to it. It's a very, very clever idea there, and the weapon itself just looks really cool. But yeah, the chest greebles on this MOC, they look great. A lot of fun things like droid bodies, Exoforce robot arm pieces that we talk about all the time on this show, or just other tubing and things. It all flawlessly works together and creates a very distinct look. Love how this has been built. Great work. Up next, we have a MOC called Kainohi, the Great Being of Emotion, and this has been built by Wombat Combat Pictures, or Connor Hoffman, whatever you want to be calling this fine gentleman. So this is a really, really cool, very distinct way of building a Great Being character. There's actually something that I found interesting, just as a quick side note with Great Beings, is when I was looking on the Bionicle Wiki, I thought there'd be more named Great Beings, and there are some, but there's a lot that haven't been named and, again, haven't been given any kind of physical appearance in any sense. Connor actually has built a bunch of different Great Being characters. So, again, check those links in the description, because he's another fantastic Bionicle YouTuber. If you haven't checked out his stuff, you definitely should. He's given life to a bunch of different Great Beings, made up his own versions and own characters and all sorts of fun stuff. That's a wealth of opportunity there for you if you want to build your own Great Beings. There's a lot of fun stuff you could play around with, and Connor has definitely done that here on this character. So I believe the idea is that this character, makes Kainohi masks and does all sorts of fun things. You can read up the lore on Connor's page, but I love the idea of giving them this like spinning mask motif on the torso. The idea that the character is almost like forging these masks as they sort of spin around the body. That's a really fun way of portraying that power, and just a really fun way of portraying any power if you have a fidget spinner on the torso, essentially. I don't have a video of it spinning, but I know that this does actually spin. Again, check the links in the description. You can watch the video that Connor has on this character and see it for yourself. But the fact that this does actually move and have a play feature of sorts kind of made me realize how rare it is to see play features on MOCs. It makes sense. Often play features are more associated with, kids playing with it and stuff. And if it's a display piece, you're not really going to be playing with it, But still, having spinny masks on the torso, that's cool. That's really cool. So there's no reason you can't include some play features on your own MOCs, whether it's as simple as something spinning, or if you want to do crazy weird things like, like the Borok had with, the heads flying forward and knocking off masks, or I don't know, if you want to do some weird transformations, or, wings flip out, but they can also be stored and they turn into a gun, like whatever. Play features are a very fun thing to do, and, it looks fantastic on this MOC. Now, the mask design on this is pretty cool, using a Krana piece here and then combining it with the Mask of Time, but putting it on its side in a strange way like that. It reminds me of a Masquerade mask, or even like the mask from the Phantom of the Opera or something. It's just different and unique, and I like that. Sometimes just going a really weird, different route is the perfect way to do it. And I think it's so distinct. I mean, this immediately came to mind when I was thinking of gods and Great Beings, because it just stands out. It's such a weird head design, but weird in all the right ways. It's great. It's really, really cool. I also love the dress on this character here. So seeing those Exoforce blades in blue on the center there, and then combining it with those orange shield pieces, That's a really, really nice design. There's something very regal and grand about that, and that's very appropriate, of course, for a god great being like MOC here. Really nice to see. Finally, let's go to a MOC by Jarek, and this is Angelic Inquisitor. I don't know, I think this is kind of a perfect example of a godlike character. Not the definitive perfect example for a godlike character. There's many ways to build it, but I think this encompasses at least the image I see when I see some sort of holy being or a god or an Angelic Inquisitor, like it says here. So yeah, the idea of including things like wings is a great choice. That's very fitting for a godlike character or an angel in this sense. So using a mix of those Chima wing pieces as well as some of those smaller claws at the top there in white. Very smart. There's a lot of different kind of claw or wing-like pieces that come in white or a plethora of other colors. You could easily build pretty much this same wing design in black if you really wanted to, actually. You know, doing that, putting those smaller pieces there is clever because it fills in some of those gaps and adds a bit of variety instead of it being the exact same piece repeated all throughout. You can put a few smaller details in there, fill in the gaps, make it look beautiful. I also like the fact that this character has a halo behind the head. Again, beautiful idea to be putting that on a godlike character. You see it all the time in religious artwork, characters having a halo or some sort of ring around the head. Never hurts to put that on a god MOC. And using these satin trans brown, as they are called on Bricklink, these pieces here, to form this circle pattern, that just looks gorgeous. And if you're interested in those pieces, they came on a bunch of the Eternals sets, specifically this one. This is a very cheap set, which you got a bunch of them in. And I still see that in the shops even today, even though Eternals is more or less retired at this point. Maybe that's just me over in Australia. I don't know. Might be the same for you. If not, I think it's pretty easy to come by that set. It was very cheap and often on clearance. So if you are interested in getting a bulk of those pieces, that might be one way to do so. Or you can just get them on Bricklink for pretty cheap too, I'm sure. But yeah, that's a gorgeous design and great to see some newer colors being used. That same color, I believe, is being used on the sword here with these 1x4 tile pieces. That is a great way to build the sword there, using a bit of system and then ending it with one of those Nexo Knight shield pieces without any printing on it there so that it has the tip. Just a great way to build a sword. And there's a bunch of system all throughout that sword and all throughout the entire MOC, actually, using a bunch of that metallic gold there that comes on like the Infinity Gauntlet set and the Monkey Kid sets, a bunch of different sets. Perfect color choice. That mixed with the white as well, something so godlike about that. Great choice. And it just looks cool. Gold always looks cool, doesn't it? The choice too to have the head just be like a hood and then you can't see any details on the inside. I like that. You know, there's some interpretations of gods where they don't actually have a physical form. They're more of an idea and or like a concept, and humans kind of give them a physical form so that they can actually comprehend them. But it's different on, you know, different forms of gods or different fictional gods or whatever. But I like the idea that they're a bit more unseen or unknowable, like a rock in the river. That's a quote for MC Lego Boy. Let's see if he gets that one. Yeah, I like that. I think it's just a fitting choice, and it just makes the character look cool because you can't see their face and they're edgy and really nice design there. And hey, if you suck at building custom head designs, you don't want to use a mask, you don't know what mask to use, just give them a hood and cover up the face and you don't even need to worry about it. I don't think that's what happened with this MOC. It seems like they very much know how to build stuff. There's a lot of fantastic techniques all throughout this. Yeah, the choice to have a hood with a clouded head like that, really cool. And just overall, such a beautiful MOC with a fantastic presence to it. Those wings just look magnificent. Love how this has been done. So that's it here for a episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series. Hope you enjoyed seeing a bunch of gods and great beings. And hey, you know, if you've got more suggestions for themes for the show, leave them in the comments below, and I will do my best to make them in the future. If you have MOCs that you want to see on the show, you can submit them through the submission email that's currently on your screen. It's also in the description below, so if you want to copy and paste that and put it in an email, send it to me. Do whatever you want. You can put whatever in that email, as long as it's Lego, and send it to me, and I'll do my best to feature it in a future episode of the show. Additionally, there's links in the description to all the MOCs you saw today. Be sure to check out some of the other stuff these builders have done. There's also links to my own stuff if you want to check out some of the social media and other things that I've got going on. That's the place to check it out. Thanks for listening, guys. Love you tons. Happy building, and bye for now.